Are we ready, Bill?
Hang on one second.
Just want to introduce Brianna. The importance of this training, and we give it to every cadet. And we have a program of instruction that takes them through their entire cadetship, but we do it for a number of reasons. Number one, it's, you need to call it playground skills or sandbox skills. You know, they have to be better than or at least conversant in dealing with other people that aren't like them, with different viewpoints, with different experiences. And if they're not, that's a liability as a leader. And then, you know, when you go into leadership roles, no matter if you're going in business or the military, you are dealing, we're a much more diverse country. The people you're leading are very diverse, and you need to have a better understanding of their viewpoint in order to lead them effectively. So this training helps our cadets do that. It's more of a leadership training module than anything else. And Brianna does a wonderful job, and her team does a wonderful job. So we're going to get this training today, and you'll see a little bit about what we offer to our cadets. And I think it fulfills a requirement, which is always nice too. But Brianna, forward your stuff.
Very much, sir. Good afternoon. So since there are new members of the board, I thought that one of the best uses of our time today would be giving an overview of the Diversity, Opportunity, and Inclusion Office, what we do, how we approach our work, and how it fits into VMI's mission. When we are talking about DOI, I believe that this is an area where there are some gaps between perception and reality of what's happening. I also believe that VMI continues to experience periods where there are incomplete narratives that see a public resurrection, and those narratives don't often take into account the genuine progress that VMI has made and the ongoing work that VMI is doing. So by giving an overview of this office, how it connects with cadet leadership, how it's connects to cadet retention, and the long-term success of VMI would be helpful. And so if we go to the next slide, so our agenda for this afternoon, I'm not going to take up 90 minutes of your time. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about me, and then we're going to go over a common language, discuss why this matters to VMI, discuss the Inclusive Excellence Framework, the work of the DOI office, and then how we can work together. So I've been at VMI for 4 years. My undergraduate degree is in English literature, and my master's degree is in leadership and higher education administration. And I started off my journey in higher education in financial aid. I worked in financial aid for about 5 years at 2 different institutions. So, well, how'd you get from financial aid to diversity? Well, when you are working in financial aid, you very quickly learn that it is not just about dollars and cents. You are working with students and their families. You are dealing with their hopes and dreams, and you have to become involved in their backgrounds, know something about their lives before you can be a steward of the government's money. It's often the government or the state's money. And so they want to know that what the students and their families are reporting on the FAFSA is correct information. So then we are often getting into, my family is divorced. I've been in foster care. I have a parent that may be incarcerated. Where I happened to work was an interesting confluence of, it was in an urban setting, but also at the gateway of a very rural community as well. So and when I mean rural, I don't mean Lexington rural, I mean like Amish and Mennonite rural. And so we had students who, for whatever reason, they were the first generation of their family to go to college. So I've had students who, their parents just got a social security number, in their 30s or 40s. I've worked with students who have experienced domestic violence, transgender students who are trying to figure out how do I report information on FAFSA document, students who just have so many different complex backgrounds. And so I quickly learned that although finances can be a barrier to student success, there are so many other things that are going on in a student's life that can impact their ability to access college and then be successful once they are there. And I found that that's where my interest was more than working with the money. So moving on to a common language, because when we come to terms such as diversity, opportunity, equity, inclusion, many people come with their preconceived notions about what those terms mean. There are a lot of definitions out there in the public. And so I want to be really clear that when we use these terms at VMI, this is what we are talking about, regardless of what someone is talking about somewhere else. And so this is a graph that shows the dimensions of diversity. And this is not the only diversity model that there is, but this is the one that I prefer. And I do show this graph to cadets. And what it shows, and I think it shows it in a very succinct and easy to access way, is that diversity is not a characteristic that some people have and some people don't. Diversity is present in every room that you enter into. So if you go to the next slide, so this is a graph that was created by researchers Garden, Schwartz, and Rowe in the 1990s. And it was created to help organizations better visualize the diversity that exists within their companies. And so at the core of the graph is a person's personality. It's the foundation of who they are. You can have identical twins, same DNA, would have vastly different personalities. And so then the internal dimensions are the characteristics that we are born with or have little control over. And so those would be things like your age, biological sex, or ethnicity, your race, your physical ability. Then you have the external dimensions, and those are things that are shaped by experience and environment. So that can be your geographical location, your income, your religion, your educational attainment, or your marital status. And then there are the organizational dimensions. These tend to show up in workplace contexts, so such as your functional level and seniority, but this is something that comes into play at VMI within our Corps of Cadets in a way that it might not show up at other colleges because of the way that our Corps is organized. So your experience of VMI might be very different based off of the company that you're in, right? There are different cultures within the different companies here. Your experience at VMI might be very different based off of where you are in your student, whether you're a fourth or a first, you're having a different experience. Next slide. And so diversity encompasses us all. Every person in this room is a diverse person. And when diversity work is done well, it does not exclude anyone. It recognizes that every dimension on the wheel matters, although some dimensions are going to matter more at certain times of life or at certain locations than others. And diversity work done well directs attention where it is actually needed. That's something that we do. Just because something is trending in higher education or this is what another university is dealing with, if this is not an issue that is present on VMI's campus, I mean, of course, we need to be aware of what the trends are, but we are actually responsive to what is happening here at VMI. And it is driven by what is being experienced in the community. So for our Corps of Cadets, we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about marital status because that shouldn't be an issue for our cadets while they are here.
If they do, it's an issue.
It might be something that they might be getting very, very soon after they graduate, but because of our enrollment standards, everybody should have the same marital status. of course, that would be different for our employees. Go to the next slide. So the next word that I want to talk about is equity. And when our office first started, we were an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We changed our name to the Office of Diversity, Opportunity, and Inclusion because we wanted to be very clear with external viewers about what we need. Now, equity is a very old word in the English language. It dates back to the 1300s, and it's based off a Latin a word, and equity has always meant fairness when you look at the dictionary term. But in the public eye, there has been a negative association with the word equity, that implementing equity initiatives means that you're lowering standards or you're giving somebody something that they don't deserve, something that they haven't worked for. And so we want it to be very clear that that is not our intention. That is never anything that we have advocated for. So I have also used this visual with cadets. This is this is what I prefer. You may have seen other visuals of equity with people who are standing on boxes at a baseball field. I like this version better because it shows that, equality, giving everyone the same thing, it sounds good on paper, but sometimes it can leave people out. That's not the intention, but if you have very long legs, getting a standard size bike, you're not going to be able to ride it comfortably. If you have shorter legs and you have a standard size bike, you're not going to be able to reach the pedals. It works for an average, a person of average height, but then if you have a mobility issue with your legs, you can't use the bike at all. But when you give someone what they need so that they can participate, all of a sudden, everybody is able to be included. So when you have the bike that I can't guarantee how fast you're going to go on that bike. I can't guarantee how far you're going to go. And if it is a race, I cannot guarantee that you're going to win. What I can do is give you what you need so that you can fully participate. And so I think that this model of equity shows that we are not trying to give anyone anything that they don't deserve. And some examples of equity at VMI, the different meal options that we have down in Crozet, right? We have different, if you have allergies, if you have a religious dietary concern, we're giving you something different than we may be serving to all of the core, but it's not in an effort to advantage you or to privilege you. We're just trying to give you what you need to be successful here in this environment. Another example of an equity initiative would be the expansion of our barbershop space. Our barbershop, nice barbershop, but it was specifically designed at a time when VMI had a larger male population and did not have a very large female population. And so what that meant is there was not the space for women to come down into the barbershop and be able to access the services that they needed to meet the grooming standards. So with that expansion of the barbershop, when we now have dedicated space for salon services, women can go down, get their hair done, use the services that they pay a fee for, and they can now access the barbershop in a way that is equitable and that wasn't present before. And I think that is also a good example because sometimes things are inequitable, not because someone intentionally was trying to not treat someone well, right? It was designed based off of what the student body was at the time. And now that the student body has changed, we need to provide something different. And VMI realized that and solved that problem. So when we talk about inclusion, we have entry-level inclusion and we have belonging. And now I know it's like VMI, we have the rat line. I mean, that is inclusion in action. And I'm like, yes, I agree with you. The rat line is one of the most powerful and unifying experiences in American higher education. But Once you have completed the rat line, that's not the end of your story. That's just the beginning of your VMI journey. Do you feel that you actually belong here just because you have earned your place? You moved from a rat to a cadet. Do you feel that you belong at VMI? And that is the level that our office is dealing with. So yes, being admitted, being bought in, going through the rat line, being held to the same standards, that is one level of you. But feeling like you can be yourself, feeling like you can show up and you don't have to hide aspects of your identity from others, that is a different level of belonging, and that's what our office focuses on. So why does this matter? Because VMI is competing for the best and the brightest, not just with our employees, but with our cadets. And when we look at Gen Z, which is the generation that is in college right now, it is the most diverse generation that the United States has seen. 48% of Gen Z identify as non-white. Depending on the study that you are looking at, between 1 in 6 and 1 in 4 members of Gen Z identify as a member of the LGBTQ community. Gen Z is one of the most politically active and politically aware generations that we have had. When you look at the level of political involvement, Gen Z, so that 18 to 24-year-old age bracket, they have much higher levels of participation than millennials and Gen X did at that same age. They are very aware of social media. They're very aware of what's being said. And so if VMI does not have a public reputation that says that this is a place that is inclusive, they are going to be aware of that. And Gen Alpha, which is the generation that is coming up after Gen Z, is on track to be even more diverse than Gen Z is. It is too early for us to have concrete numbers because they are too young, but all of the projections show that they're going to be a more diverse generation. So if VMI is not proving that this is a place where someone who is diverse can not only be admitted, but can also succeed and thrive, VMI is not going to succeed and thrive. This also matters from a leadership perspective. And so one of the things that people have said to me is, well, you know, all of this is very nice, but we are commissioning people to go into the armed services. And when you are in combat, you do not care about the dimensions of diversity of the person that's to the left or you to the right. You just care about whether they're going to have your back, whether they are, have the skills to get the job done. And that is absolutely true. But trust is built before we're under fire. Trust is built in the hallways. It's built in the barracks. It's built in Crozet. Whether you can trust someone happens before you're in that life or death situation. So imagine a cadet makes a joke, they use a slur about a certain community, and everybody that's within earshot laughs. But what they don't know is that somebody in the room is a member of that, or their family member is, or their dear friend. And so what has that cadet just learned? They don't believe in VMI's mission any less. They don't doubt the skills of the person who made the joke any less, but they are thinking, this is a person that I can't trust. This is not a person that I want to lead me. This is not a person that I can talk to if I have a problem. They've just heard an aspect of their identity be used as a punchline. And that undermines morale, and that undermines trust, and that undermines leadership. And so one of the things that we try to do in inclusive excellence programming with cadets is to help them to understand that your perceptions of who you are as a leader and how effective you will be as a leader begin long before you ever have an official leadership position. People are making those evaluations about you based off the way that you show up day to day in your interactions and how you treat people. And so we are not just preparing fighters. We are not just preparing a group of people that can go out and be as lethal as possible. We are educating leaders. We are educating people that we want to have full lives. We're educating people that we want to be successful, not just on the field of combat, but throughout their entire lives. We want them to be teachers and scholars and spouses and parents and friends and citizens. And we want them to be successful in a world that is increasingly complex and increasingly diverse. And some of the things about navigating diversity are not intuitive. They need to be taught. And so how do we do that? Well, we use a framework called inclusive excellence. This is not something that we created. It was created in the 1990s by the American Association of Colleges and Universities, and it was a response to the changing face of the American college student. And you think about what was going on at that time, there was more racial diversity in colleges. More women were going to college. You had people from broader socioeconomic backgrounds that were able to go to college. And then you had people who had capitalized on the gains that the disability community had made in the 70s and 80s. They were now going to college and expected to have a college experience that accommodated their needs. And so one of the reasons why we chose this framework is that it demands accountability in outcomes, not just intentions. It's something that schools across the United States use. And it's a framework that is credible and it's built around institutional excellence, that institutions that are more inclusive are more excellent. And so what we do, well, we provide training for employees and for cadets. Our cadet inclusive excellence training, if you've never had the opportunity to come, is delivered by a group of cadet facilitators. We started off with the one-size-fits-all model, so everyone was getting the same training, but based off of the survey results that we got, we saw that that was not what the Corps needed, that we needed to have training that corresponded to the different levels that exist here. So I was able to work with the Center for Leadership and Ethics, making sure that the training that we provided aligned with the VMI leadership journey. And so that we weren't doing anything that undermined that, but that aligns with the goals that the CLE is teaching. And so our cadet facilitators work with the 4th through 2nd classes. One of the things that we back on as far as the first class was that they said, well, we want information about how this shows up in life after VMI. How are we going to incorporate this in our workplace? And we were very lucky that we've been able to draw from our alumni to deliver that first class inclusive excellence training. Our first inclusive excellence training for the first class was, our speaker was provided by Admiral McKnight. He was able to connect us with Stephanie Easter. For the next year, we had alumni Joseph Moan, and then last week, we had alumni Grant Harris come back and speak to the Corps about neurodiversity in the workplace. And so that's something that we hope to be able to continue, that we are drawing that first class inclusive excellence speaker from our alumni base. We also engage in academic partnerships. We had an international film festival in partnership with the Modern Language Department. I did not put this on the slide, and I don't know why. This was a major oversight, but we have been working on an inclusive history program for the past 2 years. And that is something that is in partnership with the history department, with VMI Museum Systems, the BMI Archives, the Economics Department, with the Department of English, Rhetorics, and Humanistic Studies. And what we have been focused on is how we can tell untold stories at BMI. And so we have started with the lives of enslaved individuals, but we want to broaden that so that we are talking about the Irish laborers who worked at BMI, who may or may not have been indentured servants. We want to talk about women who were instrumental in the development of BMI, and we want to move out of the time period of the 1800s and talk about other time periods as well. So you will see some information about that. We're at the point where we're ready to put some of that work online. And so I think when you go back to the list of offices that are involved in this project, it shows how deeply committed BMI is to this work. And you know, this work is just an extension of what BMI has always done. BMI has always been willing to look at hard histories and to approach them with academic rigor and with honesty, and that we're going to put that forward. And we understand that telling complete histories makes us a better institution. We also engage in heritage and cultural programming. So Hispanic Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, German American Heritage Month, Black History Month programming, Women's History Month programming, Irish American Heritage Month, and we just celebrated Arab American Heritage Month for the first time last week. And then community engagement. One of the things that we've done is we have worked more closely with the Building Bridges Club. We plaque for the Rockbridge Area Relief Association. We've also had a series for the past 2 years where we have a dinner and cultural dance performance. So last year we had Polynesian dance, and then this year we had the Blue Ridge Irish Music School come to BMI. They had live musicians and performers, and so it was really nice because you know, this was an invitation to the entire BMI community. So we had faculty and staff, you know, some people made a date night, so that was really nice. Our cadets came out, but then we also had members of the BMI community, with the Lexington community, come and you know, have dinner with our cadets and watch the performance. One of the things that I did not mention is that this year, I was able to take a small group of cadets to Abingdon, Virginia, to the Barter Theater. The Barter Theater is the state theater of the Commonwealth, and that was at the invitation of BMI alum Joe Levine and his wife. They are avid supporters of the Barter Theater and have wanted to get a group to come, so I was very happy that we were finally able to do that. They were able to engage with a program that the Barter Theater has called Shine, which highlights the stories of Black Americans in Appalachia. They also had a tour of downtown Abingdon and were able to learn more about Abington's involvement in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and even some connections with BMI. Abington has some buildings that are associated with the Preston family, and we are in the Preston Library, so that was very, I think that they liked seeing a little bit of BMI and what they learned, and so I would love to be able to take a larger group of cadets back to experience Abington. So how can we work together? Well, I know that you receive a lot of questions, and many of those questions probably are connected to the work of the DOI office. And I want to make sure that you feel equipped to speak accurately about what the office does. Sometimes I feel there's a lot of conversation around and about the office, but people don't necessarily contact the office and ask for specifics or ask for clarification. We can provide background, data, program information. We would love to have you come to an Inclusive Excellence session. I would love to have Inclusive Excellence facilitators come and talk to you about why they choose to work with our office and what they get out of the program. I can help you describe what we do in language that reflects what we are actually doing. And I hope to be a resource to you and to institutional leadership, and my door is always open. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Not a question, just a comment. Because I joined the board about the time you came to the institute, and I was initially on, we then called the Inclusive Excellence Committee, and for the benefit of the board members who are new, what I can tell you is that our chief diversity officer's leadership in implementing this program has been extraordinary. She's exactly right. When it was first implemented, it was a square peg in a round hole, and they didn't get along. She wisely listened to the community, parents, cadets, faculty, alumni, and tailored this program to the needs of the cadets in the institute. And when I think about a couple of years ago, when you were talking about strategic goals and they were like 4 pages long, and to see where we are today, again, a tremendous testament to your leadership and the example. And so I just want to say thank you for your years of service, putting all this together.
If I could just kind of close it out with a couple comments. You know, number one, I mean, there's things in your life that impact you and you truly just never forget them. And when I joined the Marine Corps, both at the senior non-commissioned officer level and everybody through major and above, had been in the Marine Corps, came out of Vietnam, decided to stay and literally save the Marine Corps. We had huge racial issues. You know, I think by the time you might have still had them when you came in 77.
And how the Marine Corps.
And the thing that those specifically our staff non-commissioned officers were adamant about was, and we had a lot of what we called equal opportunity training, EO. And it was designed to do exactly pretty much what our training here is designed to do. Is, you know, basically open your aperture, who's on your left or right. They could be different, it didn't matter. And you had to get to know them, you had to work with them. And the Marine Corps is a little inelegant, much less elegant than Brianna. And so we basically said, you're either dark green or light green, it didn't matter, you're green. And you're all the same. And a lot of times you're all the same, we're gonna treat you all like dogs. And that was the way the Marine Corps kind of did it. But then, you know, you evolve. I can one of the biggest role models in my life is professionally is General Mattis. General Mattis will tell you, you know, you got to love the people that you lead. The first part about that is you got to get to know who they are. And who they are as individuals is important because the buttons that you push and your understanding of who they are and what they require and how you need to lead them will all be different depending on the individual. And if you don't want to go to that level, you can be a competent leader, but you can't really be a great leader and you can't really elevate the performance of an organization. And so, you know, when I got here, you hear a lot of, you know, DEI, DOI, all the boogeyman. And, you know, so I've sat in classes, I've talked a lot to Brianna, I've watched the cadets interact with it. And there's really, I go back and I'm like, well, it's kind of the same thing that, you know, our gunnies and sergeant majors were talking to us about in 1987. And I really think the kerfuffle surrounding it is about not understanding exactly what we're trying to do, the definitions that we use. But this is important for VMI and one, is the right thing to do. That's the first reason. The second reason is, as our alumni base, and I've talked about this with the agencies, becomes increasingly more diverse. The Corps is about 38%, what we would call diverse right now. between women, African Americans, Asians, Latinos. And over time, that's going to be, and that number will continue to increase so that our alumni mirror that. And right now, the people that have the most buying power, the earning, the people that are given the biggest gifts are old white guys, period. Go to these events, that's all you see. I've been to a lot of events in the last 8 months. We have a problem with female alumni. We let them in. They're more successful now than probably they've ever been in the history of the school, and they're eye-wateringly good and talented and a key element of the core leadership. But do they feel a sense of belonging? Because if they don't, they're not going to give money. Okay. And it's the same for every African Americans, Latinos, Asians. It doesn't really matter. Yes, you can let somebody in. You can allow them to participate. They got to feel like you care about them, that you care about what their concerns are, and that you have embraced them as part of the family. And if they don't feel that way, you got to sit down kneecap to kneecap, find out why, and you got to move in that direction, overcome those things. That's what this program is really designed to do for cadets. I can tell you the cadets, they have no bag, they have far less baggage than anybody in this room. Okay. And that's why I think they were indignant about some of the things that were said about the school, because they don't see it. Okay. It's not their experience. But I'll tell you, as we go around here, when I was around there, I didn't see a lot of African American alumni in these sessions. Okay. It would be one or two, maybe a female, most of the time not, a bunch of old white guys. And if we want to die in that ditch, 15 years from now, you'll see the giving go like this, and we won't be able to produce $40 million a year in private support. And that'll be as big a risk to the institution as the state cutting off our money. So there's a window of opportunity, I think, where we can move forward on this and show the institution cares about these things. And so this is just one aspect of that. And it's something I've been talking to, I don't know, where's Dallas ain't here. I've been talking to Dallas about, I've been talking to Chaplin about since I've been here. And so we got to get hot before, we run out of time. So I just want to thank Brianna for doing what she's doing. She puts up with a lot too. We get a lot of emails about this initiative, these programs. Oh yeah. And this, I'll probably get a lot because I'm running my swamp cooler right now. I think it's a good program. I think it's absolutely required for the young people that we are educating and developing today. I don't see any nefarious boogeyman lurking in the shadows of the program. How do you treat people? Do you listen to them? Everybody has a journey you know nothing about, find out about it. It's just good advice for how to be a good leader and a good person, and we should be embracing it here. So that's what I wanted to have. But I just wanted to end this on that note if I could.
I'm sorry.
At what point in the cadetship do you start your orientation or conduct these programs? Tell me when it started, through the 4 years, how you'll be involved with the typical cadet.
So inclusive excellence training is mandatory for every class. We start with the RATMAS/fourths. They get 50 minutes of inclusive excellence training each academic year. So we go through the fourths, the third, and so on. So that is the only mandatory session that they have to go to. Most of our contact with cadets is doing some of these other activities, the Heritage Months, or working with other departments and doing activities.
Thank you.
If I could piggyback on the superintendent's comments about share the Marine Corps experience, and mine predates his by a decade. and Don will appreciate this, I think, more than anybody else in the room. In the wake of the Vietnam War in the mid-70s, the Marine Corps suffered tremendously from racial problems, drug problems, et cetera. It instituted a program called the Small Unit Leader Discussion Group, where a lieutenant and occasionally a more senior officer would get with the unit the size of a squad, and they sit in a circle and discuss issues that were affecting things like cohesion and loyalty and trust. It was a very rudimentary approach to it, but that was a leadership program. At its core, this program is a leadership program. You want to build leaders, they got to know who's being led, and those who are being led need to respect their leaders. And they gain that respect because they get the sense that their leaders care about them, they love them, they're going to take care of them, they're going to get to know them. And so, yeah, I think it's extremely important, and I want to thank you, Brianna, for the eloquence and the passion with which you presented that overview. Very much appreciated.
Maybe a little out of the box, but we evaluate people if they're physically capable of going to VMI. We evaluate people if they're academically capable of going to VMI. But people come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Some people come with great potential, but people from horrible backgrounds, biased backgrounds. Is there any kind of questionnaire that can be done or is done with a cadet coming out to get some kind of feel for what their social views are? And if we see some incompatibility there that could alert us, as if we physically you see something wrong, or academically you see a weak point, where we could early identity of where there's potentially an incompatibility that we can address early in the game.
There are some implicit bias inventories. There's one in particular that was developed by Harvard. Now there's some discussion about how great they are or how useful they are, but it's something that I've taken and that I have mentioned to cadets before. It's not something that I've ever required cadets to take, but that is a possible. I think that is something that can help you kind of clue into where your biases are. But you have to take the results with a grain of salt.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But I will tell you, I mean, I dismissed a cadet, fourth class cadet this year. For a racial incident, and I was talking to the young man, as you don't, and I'm pretty flatline when I do something like that. And he just said, "Sir, where I grew up, that's how we act." I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry about that. You can't do that here." And where we are, for sexual assault and sexual harassment and racial incidences, I treat that kind of transgression just like an honor offense. You can't be part of the team. And I've dismissed a number of people this year for the.
In my career, I've fired more people for sexual harassment than anything else. I mean, I feel a little sorry for the kid that arrives here and they've been contaminated. And if we can fix them, great. If you can't, you can't, or maybe I don't know. It's great if you can catch it early.
So I want to add about the implicit bias inventories, that I think that's something that you use the results for yourself. It's not something that you share with others. But to your point about cadets who arrive here with different attitudes, one of the things when I hear about these incidents, I never think of cadets as people who are dyed-in-the-wool racist or sexist or any of the isms, right? They're so young and they still have so much to learn. And so Our office has never had a punitive approach. Other than, if you don't come to your superintendent's training time and that's where you were supposed to be, like that's the only penalty that's ever come out of our office. We are always about education because I believe if you know better, you are going to do better. And so I just think that sometimes cadets just need education and need to be exposed to so many of the wonderful things. So it's not just our office, but there are so many different departments throughout VMI that are engaging in activities that are going to broaden a cadet's perspective, and hopefully they will let go of some of those harmful mentalities.
Part of it, I think, you look at honor, a lot of them come from societies culturally where they don't respect that either. And start by scaring the snot out of them. And over time, trying to teach them that this is a valuable way to live their life, and hopefully they evolve. As long as they don't transgress, that evolution can continue. If they transgress. So this is a little bit like that. We're going to educate them. And we're going to tell them that, I got them together and told them, hey, this is the standard. So forewarned is forearmed. And so, yeah, but I don't think they actually believe me. The first kid I did it to, his jaw dropped and like, sorry.
Brianna, so, when I was here, I was a committee chair. So talk a little bit, because I think it's important, especially for new board members, about some of the feedback that we get from the kids that have taken the training. Because I know when I was with Verizon, I did it for 20-something years as an engineer. I don't think we didn't really have it when we were students, but I think it's important because I think that the word racism is used too often. I think people automatically jump to, I think there's a difference between racism and racial bias. Racism is bad. I think racial bias is not necessarily bad because it's a product of the environment. And so, but I know some of these kids that come in have never even spent much time with a black cadet, a black kid until they got to school. When I grew up in high school, I think we were about 60-40. So again, I had, experience, but when I got to VMI, it was a bit of a cultural shock because there was so many. It was only like 100 of us out of 1,200 students. But talk to that's important for them to, what the kids felt like they got out of it. In the program. I don't know, are y'all still doing them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we still do the surveys.
We're just bringing them in to talk to them and get feedback from them.
So the highest ratings on our surveys always come from the rats, and they're excited to get to know their fellow rats in a different way, that they're learning things, that they're having conversations that they might not have had until they came to the inclusive excellence session. When you go to the third, seconds, the first, there are more mixed results. Some people think, well, why do I need this? I already learned this at home. But then you get people who are saying, I learned something new, or I thought about something in a different way, or one of the things that we get are people that then are coming to our office to talk about something that they have experienced or something that came up within a session. So it's also an avenue where people can get to know me or to know my facilitators and understand that these are people who are trusted individuals and that you can go to. So reports that come into Title IX or to my office are, these things are sometimes coming out in the inclusive excellence sessions. We get comments of cadets that want to know more, or they want to know about other topics that are going on. So we've gotten feedback that, there is something happening in media. Why can't we talk about this as a community? So, the feedback is generally positive. Again, as you go to the higher classes, it can be mixed. So I was very, very pleased with the preliminary results from our first class in Inclusive Excellence that we just had that talked about neurodiversity in the workplace. And specifically how agencies such as the FBI and the NSA are specifically recruiting for people who have an autism diagnosis because of that superior pattern recognition. They really appreciated understanding more about that aspect of diversity. Also had cadets come up to our speaker and shake the speaker's hand and say, "Thank you so much. I have a diagnosis that's on the neurodiversity spectrum." So they were able to see themselves within this environment and to have their diagnosis talked about in a way that was an asset, not as something that was detrimental or as something that was negative. I think that was very positive. I actually had somebody, I was just walking to the library and he passed me and he was like, "Hey man, that was a really good speaker you brought in today." So I'm like, okay, I'm getting better at this with every time we go around. So yeah, I mean, and then because of the sessions, then there are people who the next year they want to sign up to work for the office. They want to be an inclusive excellence facilitator. And usually they want to be an inclusive excellence facilitator because they have a story. And they're like, you know what? I want to make things better. I want things to be better than what they were for me. And I love that. I love when cadets are approaching me with a problem-solving mentality, I want to help mentality. And I think every year the program is just getting stronger and, you know, want to make it more applicable to the experience every year.
Anyone else? Carol, anything else on that? That concluded for this afternoon then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we next assemble at 18:30 in Hall of Hour for dinner.